Live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Good evening. I'm Maria Garcia. Glad you're with us. We're 2 days away from Pope Francis's historic visit, an event so massive both El Paso and Ciudad Juarez will essentially shut down normal operations to focus resources on the huge influx of people to our area. More than 1 million pilgrims are expected to travel to Juarez to see the Pope. And in El Paso, hundreds of journalists are expected to descend to witness the event. Citing safety concerns, El Paso police decided to close part of Loop 375 and South El Paso so people don't congregate to see the Pope. This weekend, the altar in Juarez was fully installed, and the volunteers who will form a human chain surrounding the Pope held their final practice. And the arena where the Pope will hold a mass just yards away from the El Paso border is now in the hands of the Mexican military. We have a lot of logistics to talk about today. Also, we're going to talk about the Pope's message here on the border. Joining us for our first segment, El Paso Bishop Mark Seitz and Diocese Communications Director Elizabeth O'Hara. In our second segment, Ramiro Cordero with U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Border Patrol, plus Ruben Jauregui, also with the CBP, overseeing the Office of Field Operation and Ports of Entry. For questions, call us at 915-496-1775, email us at ABC7Extra@KVIA.com, or tweet me at MariaGABC7. And joining us now, Bishop Mark Seitz and El Paso Diocese Communications Director Elizabeth O'Hara. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So this is it.
Here we are.
Here we are. This is the big week everybody's been talking about for the last 2.5 months. Juarez saying it's prepared. El Punto is finished. How does the diocese feel about this next week coming up?
Well, we're going to continue running right up to the last second, but I think we have the basic things in place, and we're ready for a great celebration.
Right. So Sun Bowl, have the tickets sold out? How many people are you expecting?
We've got tens of thousands of tickets that have been sold. We are not at a sellout. And as we all know, here in El Paso, we're kind of a walk-up market for those kind of things. But we've really seen a huge drive, especially here in like the last 5 days, where we were getting phone calls from journalists. For instance, I took a phone call from somebody from Brooklyn who was going to be following a group of people who were coming here to El Paso. So we know they're coming. They're buying large blocks of tickets, and so right now it's looking very exciting. I think we're going to have a really great showcase at the Sun Bowl.
Liz, what is the incentive for somebody to go to the Sun Bowl? I know there's people thinking, this may be the only time in my life where the Pope is going to be so physically close to where I am, right across the border. What's the incentive to see the Mass on a big screen at the Sun Bowl rather than try somehow to get across the border and catch a glimpse?
Well, you talked about the logistics, and for a lot of people that's a big challenge. And so if they don't have the proper paperwork, if they don't have lodging, if they don't have the time off from work, going to the Sun Bowl gives them the opportunity to be in a faith-filled community, to really take part in what's happening. And one of the big things that we're very proud of, and our team has worked very hard, is to make sure this is a two-way telecast. So if you want to get a blessing from Pope Francis, the only way to get that in El Paso is to be at the Sun Bowl, and so that's a big driver for us. And the good news about that is that he'll be able to see us as well. And so as everybody is cheering as he's making his message, he has also referenced, and you may want to jump in here, Father Lombardi, I believe, his spokesperson, talked about this about a week ago in Rome Reports, where the Pope is certainly aware and has made reference to the thousands of people who were gathering in El Paso. That's a specific reference to the Sun Bowl.
Right.
So we want to be able to show him that we are indeed here, that we are excited, we are in support, and we're in celebration.
Yeah, I mean, to say that this is the next best thing to being there, I think it really is the truth in this case. And as Elizabeth mentioned, the Holy Father himself is looking forward to greeting us in the Sun Bowl. Part of what he wants to do by coming to this border area is to show how across a border there can still be community. And so really by us gathering there, although we're not going to be right in Juarez in his presence, in a certain way it will be an even more powerful sign of the way that we communicate across these borders and share family and economy and so on.
Mm-hmm. El Paso Police, in consultation with the Secret Service and with other federal law enforcement agencies, said that it was just too risky to leave part of Loop 375 open for people to congregate to try to catch a glimpse of the Pope from this side of the border, saying, you know, there's a risk for people to get trampled, and they just don't have the resources, the time, the staff to provide a safe environment if that were to remain open. Was it a little bit of a disappointment for you all that that area was going to be closed?
That was our initial dream, that we would just gather tens of thousands of people there on the border highway, and that they would be closer than perhaps some of the people in the crowd on the other side. But as law enforcement studied the issue and then spoke to us, we began to realize, first of all, that not nearly as many people would be able to gather there as we had hoped or dreamed. And then secondly, that there were safety issues for the people themselves that would gather there. That area is just full of curbs and you know, different barriers that would make walking around there real challenging, especially in a large crowd.
You know, this past week we learned that the Pope is expected to walk onto a ramp and to wave at a group of El Pasoans who will be about 100 feet away. What do you expect that moment to be like? And I'm sure there are people watching, and we've heard some people say, you know, it's going to be kind of bittersweet to have a Pope, you know, peek into the U.S. and to see this sort of empty, desolate, guarded off area, and then behind him there's, you know, hundreds of thousands of people celebrating.
I think he's also aware, though, of the kind of crowd that he does attract. And when we were in Philadelphia, so Philadelphia's, the backdrop for that was a kind of an evolving story, because it was the World Meeting of Families that was taking place in Philadelphia. So the city was prepared for 60,000 people to show up for a conference. Then, with a year's notice, Pope Francis said, I think I'll come at the end of the week. And the city of Philadelphia went from 60,000 people coming for this conference to 1 million people who showed up. One of the big challenges that we've had in talking with the city was we simply don't know how many people may be coming by to get a glimpse. And so that's kind of where that evolution of what was happening with Loop 375 kind of came in. And we wanted to make sure that everybody who was going to gather would be able to do so in a safe way. I think that we completely understand where people feel like when he looks toward us, he won't see much. But in fact, what he will be seeing is a group of people gathered there for whom he is celebrating this Mass. He recognizes the challenges that we have had to meet here in the last 9 weeks. Remember, the city of El Paso is getting ready to pull off something that has never been done. All of the other cities where the Pope has arrived have had months, a year, more than a year to plan. We are getting ready to pull this off in 9 weeks. So he understands.
Right. I want to talk about his message. He has a very localized message, or he really incorporates local components to his message whenever he is in a city. For example, he's celebrating Mexico's indigenous people tomorrow, heading to Chiapas. He's already issued a sweeping apology for the Catholic Church's colonial-era crimes against the continent's indigenous peoples. What do you think he will say, or what do you think his message will revolve around when he's in Juarez?
Well, of course, he has a number of stops that are focused on particular issues. He's visiting prisoners, and I think that's a pretty powerful message.
Right.
Sometimes today we would just as soon warehouse those people and forget them. He's giving us a different message. Then he goes to the gimnasio, and there he'll be meeting with workers from the maquiladoras and so on. He'll be highlighting the rights and dignity of workers in that setting. Then he comes to El Punto for the Mass, and there on the border the focus will clearly be on the issues that our region struggles with and deals with every day, the reality of immigration, and also the violence that Juarez has suffered in the past decade or so. So those will be his foci in the next.
There's
at that
a lot
time.
of thought put into those stops in Ciudad Juarez. The Border Network for Human Rights tomorrow meeting at the Anapra-Sunland Park border, and they're addressing the Pope, writing a letter to him, expressing some of their concerns, issues that immigrants face, hardships that immigrants face. How much of those kinds of messages actually reach the Pope?
Well, in terms of the specific event, it's hard to say.
Right.
But the Pope has already shown, and I think by choosing Juarez, El Paso, Las Cruces, this region, he's shown an awareness of the issues that we face, particularly here, and he's chosen to zero in on them. It's amazing how well informed this man is.
And you've told me before how he had spoken before about crossing the U.S.-Mexico border as an immigrant.
Right. He himself commented in an interview before coming to the United States that he would have loved to come into the United States through Juarez like a migrant.
You know, obviously immigration a very politicized issue in the United States. I'm sure, and we've heard from viewers who are uneasy about the immigration message the Pope brings with him. What do you say to people who have those concerns?
This is actually something we talk about quite a bit. The U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops talks quite a bit about immigration and the Church's stance on that. And the Church has never said we want to have an open border. That's not what the Church believes at all. We understand that the government needs to have a border and that requires a federal enforcement. And the Church believes and stands behind that and is in support of that. The only thing the Church has ever said is that when people are in process, they should be treated with respect and dignity. And so I think that that has been a consistent message that we've seen quite a bit with Bishop Seitz, and that we are hoping to continue to put out with this event and even beyond.
Okay. Before I let you go, we're going to have you come back, Bishop, in the third segment. In our second segment, we're going to have officials with Customs and Border Protection. But you're having a giveaway of tickets tomorrow in Segundo Barrio, right?
Right. We're concerned about the folks in Segundo Barrio, and it's unfortunate in a way that they're going to be asked to make some sacrifices that the rest of us aren't. Their area will be closed in order to keep that part of the border safe. And so we want to offer them something to compensate in some small way, we hope. We'll be at St. Ignatius tomorrow evening about 5:30, and we'll be offering free tickets to residents of Segundo Barrio.
Okay.
As long as they last.
Okay. All right.
To the Sun Bowl.
To the Sun Bowl, yes. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back with officials from Customs and Border Protection to tell us how they're preparing for all of the people who will be crossing the U.S.-Mexico border throughout our ports of entry here in El Paso. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. We're talking about the Pope's visit on Wednesday, and joining us now, Ramiro Cordero with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol, and Ruben Jauregui, also with CBP, overseeing the Office of Field Operations and Ports of Entry. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
So this is an unprecedented event. We really haven't seen anything of this magnitude on the border. So what have your offices been doing to prepare for this?
Well, with the field operations, we've ensured to get additional personnel. We want to ensure to have all the lanes open for the day of the visit as well as the day after. So bringing additional resources out here with officers will allow us to, you know, in a way facilitating traffic by processing more, by keeping all these lanes open.
So you will have more personnel?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And all ports of entry are open, all lanes are open?
Yes, in El Paso, you know, our 4 locations. And in addition to that, Santa Teresa will begin from the 15th out through the 19th, opening 24 hours, which normally they're open till midnight, as well as Tornillo. They'll begin on the 17th through the 19th. Having those ports available 24 hours will allow us to help with the congestion in El Paso, giving people, you know, different avenues, different options.
For Border Patrol, your role here comes down to safety, right?
Correct. I mean, our role is going to be that of support, working with all of our other law enforcement partners, whether it be state, local, federal. I mean, like you said, this is an unprecedented event, and we all have to help each other. I mean, that's why El Paso it's what it is. You know, the safest city in the nation is because we work very well together. So, I mean, the main purpose is here to allow people to enjoy this historical event and ensure their safety as they're here, whether they're from El Paso or traveling from elsewhere. First and foremost, our job is to secure the border, and we can assure everybody that we will do that, but we can also assure them that working with everybody, with all the other law enforcement agencies, we're going to be able to keep everybody safe.
El Paso ports average 30,000 vehicles a day, am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. 30,000 and 20,000 pedestrians.
And on holidays, that doubles, usually.
Yes, yes.
To about 60,000 vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
So, any sense of what we're going to see on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
No, and for that reason, it's imperative that we're prepared, having all the lanes open. You know, we've experienced other events in Ciudad Juarez, you know, the national matches, soccer matches,
right.
And we see a surge of traffic coming our way immediately after the match, as well as with concerts. So that's what we're expecting for this, and you know, having all the lanes open will help us facilitate traffic.
Now, the Mexican government is telling people don't cross through the Bridge of the Americas because that will create further congestion on the Mexican side. But the U.S. not taking a stance on that, saying, look, we're here, we're ready. The Bridge of the Americas is open as all our ports.
Yes, yeah, we'll be ready for any traffic that comes our way. You know, we'll be ready to process them and get them through.
Okay, documents. That's very important. Have your documents ready. If you have just your driver's license, personnel is going to have to verify your identity, and that takes time. You have to verify they're who they say they are. You have to go through your system, which creates a backup for all the people behind them.
Yes, and what we've done is develop programs to facilitate those that do have their documents. We have what we call the ready lanes, as well as the Sentry,
Right.
the dedicated commuter. Those that do have the documents, the U.S. passport, booklet, and or the card, as well as the border crosser cards that are the newer ones, they can use a ready lane in that with our RFID, our radio frequency ID systems. They're identified prior to getting to the officer. All others that have just a driver's license, birth certificate, sometimes we even have American citizens with no documents at all, just their oral declaration. Now our officer has to verify them individually, so it takes time, and in reality that's what backs up our lines, is the officers having to do these manually.
And you know, people who live on the border know that, they're used to that, but you're going to have a lot of people from out of state coming and crossing through El Paso into Ciudad Juarez, maybe someone who hasn't crossed in a decade, where all they had to say was American, and so you're going to have a lot of people who maybe not be incredibly familiar with all the documents they need.
Yes, and because of, you know, programs like yours, it's helping us inform these people, keep them informed on what to expect when they come out to the ports of entry.
Okay.
So yeah, we're putting a message out.
Okay, Tornillo, Santa Teresa, also ports that you should consider, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so, you know, an international event like this, what kind of boost in personnel are we looking at for both of your agencies?
Well, at the ports of entry, you know, we're getting them from throughout the country. Normally with personnel, it's something that we don't share. You know, it's an internal thing, security reasons. But, you know, we're going to have the personnel necessary to have all the lanes open. So that...
Are you bringing in personnel from other...
Yes, from Arizona,
states,
South Texas, as well as international airports in the northern border with Canada. So we're bringing them out. And in addition to that, personnel from ports that are immediately by El Paso.
Okay, let's go to our phone lines. We have Fernie on the east side. Fernie, what's your comment or your question?
Yes, my question is this. Have you prepared for the extended stay of the Mexican people that have come from the interior that are going to stay over and want to come across El Paso for shopping?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, we have. Our additional personnel will be with us through the 19th. We're expecting through the following weekend. So
Okay.
yes, we will definitely be prepared.
Right, and this is not a thing where, you know, you suddenly decide on Wednesday to cross into Mexico because you suddenly decide you want to try to see if you can catch a glimpse of the Pope. I mean, this is going to be a trip that's going to require some planning, some logistical readiness. Consider going the day before on Tuesday, if
Yes, you know, and look at our CBP website. Go in there, you can look at the wait times for the ports of entry. The city of El Paso has an excellent website where you can go in and you actually see the traffic, live cameras. So plan ahead. If you are going to plan to be in line, you know, bring something to drink, something to eat, use the restroom before you get in line. But, you know, look at the different options, the different ports of entry, and cbp.gov is an excellent website to go in there. We've got a portion in the Know Before You Go where we give travel tips on there.
Okay, and also for the additional personnel that you're going to have, they're going to be here, like you said, several days. But you're going to see the influx of people most likely right after the Mass, just like you say with other events, like a soccer match. Once that ends, you see people trying to get across the border. So I imagine right when the Mass ends, that's when you all are going to be getting ready for all of those individuals who are going to try to cross.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, we see it like a race. You start ahead, so with us having the personnel a few days before as well as after. So when we start before, the line isn't accumulating, so that when we get the surge of traffic, you know, we're processing them as they're coming to us.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that the public is aware about this historic event that we haven't touched base on?
Well, at the ports of entry, when you come out, ensure to be prepared. Have your documents readily available. This is not a good time to go out and buy groceries. If there isn't a need to travel to Ciudad Juarez or from Juarez to El Paso, you know, we recommend that they wait till after the event, a few days after. So, you know, not a good time to bring groceries. It delays the process there at the port of entry.
Right.
But most important, be prepared. If you go to our cbp.gov, the travel tips there are excellent. And just plan your trip prior to coming to us.
Okay. Agent Cordero, is there anything else?
I mean, and as you mentioned before, this is a historical event. A lot of people coming here. A lot of people do seem to take advantage of situations like this to, you know, engage in criminal activity. And, you know, just want to send a message that, you know, all law enforcement agencies will be in the area, and the laws are still being enforced regardless of what's going on, either in Mexico or in the United States or near or at the border.
Right.
Border Patrol has emergency medical technicians that are prepared to help out if it needs to be. And you're going to see Border Patrol doing some non-traditional Border Patrol work, whether it be directing traffic or helping out the other law enforcement agencies. So just, you know, be aware that we're out there, and if you need anything, I mean, we're ready to assist and protect also.
So you're aware that sometimes, you know, drug smugglers use big events like this to sort of camouflage among the crowd, but you say you're ready.
Of course.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on this second segment. Really useful information. We really appreciate it. We'll be right back with more from the Bishop after the break. Welcome back. Let's go to our tweets now from Michael Zamorano. Why hasn't there been much national attention when it comes to Pope Francis visiting a border town to the United States? There has been a significant amount of national attention. We saw several articles, a really positive one from the LA Times. Michael also tweeting, will there be any national news coverage, or are reporters visiting El Paso? Are the national reporters visiting the border? I mean, I know just for the Sun Bowl event, so many credentials for media that the diocese has had to issue, right? I think maybe more than 200?
Right. 250 credentials
Wow.
for media from around the country. So, yes, there is interest. They won't have the lead-up that we had, although there have been a number of stories already, as you mentioned. I was interviewed by the Washington Post, CNN, LA Times. So, but when the event happens, I think eyes will turn toward our region. So I hope everyone's smiling.
Right. There has been especially print stories. Television tends to cover the day of, but there has been a lot of print stories. I think this is also an opportunity for El Paso and Ciudad Juarez to be seen in another light, other than sort of the cliche, very tired stories of violence and drugs that El Paso gets a bad rap for, even though we're incredibly safe. So this is an opportunity, I think, for this region to be seen in a different way.
Absolutely. You know, to remind people that we're really just one community. You know, we've got families that, you know, have immigrated to El Paso, remain in Juarez. These commuters that we see every day, you know, these 30,000 vehicles, 20,000 pedestrians daily, these are commuters we see every day. And some live in Juarez, work in El Paso, and vice versa.
Right.
So yeah, they're going to see that we are one community, and you know how well we do.
And the economy is incredibly intertwined, millions of dollars worth of trade through our border. An email now, I'm very disappointed. The Sun Bowl will not allow people to bring in their food and beverages for a religious ceremony. Also, the Sun Bowl's prices are ridiculously expensive, and this is not fair to people who can barely afford to attend this mass. We heard the same kind of thoughts last time you were on, Bishop. Do you want to address that again?
Well, there are certain things that we don't have any control over. When we use the Sun Bowl, we use the services that they provide, and I think any of us who go to football games, basketball games, to whatever kind of event, we find that the prices are a little higher, and they also do control what's brought in, and there are safety reasons for that as well as others. So we have to work with the existing systems, and we're just awfully glad that we have such a beautiful facility as the Sun Bowl that we can use.
With a great capacity. And from Ralph, I feel it's really shameful how the faithful have been treated by El Paso leaders by not allowing us to see the Pope near the border. We heard from Mayor Oscar Leeser, who said, you know, I entertained it. I entertained the idea of allowing people on the border. It was something that I really, really wanted to do. And I think you hear that from a lot of people saying, yes, we really wanted to do that. We thought it was a great idea, but logistically, safety-wise, El Paso police saying, you know, in consultation with the Secret Service, it was just not doable.
Right. I think we have to take the advice of the people that are professionals, that are hired to protect us and keep us safe. I trust the decision that they made, and I know that they would have loved to have opened that possibility to us if they felt that they could do so. I think it's time, though, for us to put aside the disappointments and to look to what we have. We don't want the eyes of the world upon us, and we're just saying, well, we couldn't go where we wanted to go. You know, let's celebrate, let's make this a great event, and I just really want to encourage people to come to the Sun Bowl. They're going to be as close to being part of it as we can. In fact, we will be part of it. This has never happened before. A pope has never spoken to a group gathered in a remote spot like this, and they've never had the opportunity to greet him. This is unprecedented.
The fact that it's a two-way telecast
Yes.
is really, really, really unique.
It really is, and we'll have some wonderful entertainment. We'll have some time for prayer, for testimonies. People will have this as a memory that they will never forget.
Wow. All right. Well, with that, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Jauregui. Really, really useful information. Bishop, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you in the coming week. A lot of coverage from ABC-7 on the Pope visit. We'll have crews in Ciudad Juarez, in South El Paso, and throughout the borderlands. So stay with us for our Pope visit coverage throughout the week. Bye-bye.